Left to die in a sack, a little girl whispers, "Mama, what happens next will haunt you forever." Deep in the woods, under the twisted limbs of skeletal trees, a chilling sight lay hidden. Inside a burlap sack, a small girl, no more than 5, gasped softly. Her emerald eyes, wide with terror, scanned her dark surroundings, heart pounding like a trapped bird. The air was thick with the scent of moss and damp earth, laced with something far more sinister. It was as if the very trees held their breath, blocking out hope and shrouding her in a cloak of despair. A sharp rustle sliced through the eerie quiet. Was it the wind, or something more menacing? She cringed as images of her mother flashed in her mind. "Mama," she whispered, the sound barely escaping her trembling lips. Would someone hear her? Would someone care? Each breath felt like it could be her last. The sack pressed down, stifling her tiny form, shadows dancing in the corners of her vision. Just outside, the woods thrummed with life, faint chirps of hidden creatures and distant, growling thunder. But what lurked beyond? Did the trees whisper secrets of her fate? Time slowed in her world, each moment a heavy footstep in her chest. Her fragile spirit hung in the balance. Was it dark magic holding her captive? Or a cruel twist of fate that left her here? Desperation clawed at her throat. She remembered the stories she'd heard, of children lost in the woods, never to return. Would she be another ghost haunting these woods? Hope flickered like a dying candle, and fear knotted tightly in her gut. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Hope rekindled as a flicker of movement caught her eye. A figure loomed outside the sack, tall and dark. A wave of dread crashed over her, but also a tremor of hope. Was this a hunter? A savior? The figure stepped closer, and the sun faded into a moody twilight, shadows wrapping around the scene like a shroud. The girl held her breath, heart racing. Silence wrapped around her like a second skin. Please, please, she thought, as the figure reached down. What would happen next? Would she scream, or would she silently await her fate? The figure knelt beside the sack, and the girl felt an involuntary shiver run through her small body. The stranger's face was cloaked in shadow, but she could make out a glint of something in his eyes. A mix of fear and curiosity battled within her. What did he want? Would he be her savior or another monster lurking in the dark? As he unwrapped the burlap, panic surged through her veins. She wanted to scream, to lash out, but somehow the words stuck in her throat like a lump of ice. "Mama," she choked out again, the sound trembling in the cool air. The figure paused, his fingers hesitating over the edge of the sack. "Mama?" he echoed, voice low and smooth, almost soothing. "Where is she, little one?" She couldn't see his face clearly, but there was something untrustworthy in the way he asked. Was he playing with her? A part of her wanted to trust him, perhaps he was a good man. But something in her gut twisted, warning her to be careful. His hands moved swiftly, pulling the sack open wider, revealing her trembling form. She blinked at the sudden dim light that trickled in, casting eerily familiar shapes on the forest floor. The woods felt alive around her, rustling leaves, whispering winds seemed to watch closely, waiting for her answer. I don't know," she stammered, the words stinging her tongue. I was lost." He sighed, a low sound full of understanding, but she noticed the slightest twitch of his lips. Was it a smile? Or a mask for something darker? Lost, yes, many are lost in these woods. His gaze intensified, narrowing as he took a deeper look at her. "But I can help you. You just need to trust me." Trust? The very word felt like poison in her mouth. Her young heart raced, she was torn. The darkness encircled her, its breath heavy with dread and whispers for her to run. "Who are you?" she dared to ask. "Someone who knows where your mama is," he said gently. "And I can take you to her. But you have to listen to me and stay close." With that, the shadows around them shifted unsettlingly, as if arguing with the promise he made. Just beyond the tightening darkness, the trees swayed, creaking as they whispered out warnings she couldn't quite grasp. "Then go," she murmured, her voice just a frightened wisp. "Take me to her." The figure's demeanor shifted. He reached out a hand, calloused and rough but innocently inviting. Had he really come to help her? A shred of hope broke through her panic, but the uncertainty loomed large. The woods seemed to breathe in heavy anticipation. As she took his hand, the grip felt solid but confusing, warm yet unsettling. In that moment, she could either find her way back to her mother or stumble deeper into a facade woven by shadows. "Stay close." His voice dropped to a whisper, as he began to pull her away from the sack and into the thickening gloom of the forest. But as they ventured forward, her heart began to sink. The trees leaned in closer, their gnarled fingers like twisted branches reaching to grasp her back. Something wasn't right. With every step she took, a deeper darkness enveloped them, wrapping like a thick fog. Was she really being rescued? Or was she walking into a nightmare she couldn't escape? A distant rumble erupted in the sky, an angry growl that seemed to echo her fears. She glanced back, eyes wide with terror. The sack lay abandoned, the forest now swallowing it whole. "Wait, where are we going?" she cried, tugging against his hand, but he only smiled, a hint of something dark hiding behind his gaze. "To find your mother, and the truth." As they stepped into the deepening shadows, dread wrapped tightly around her heart, squeezing more with each heartbeat. What truth awaited her in the darkness? The trees whispered anew, and with a sudden, bone-chilling wind, she could only wonder if she had sealed her fate by trusting him. What lay in store on this perilous path? The truth would reveal itself, but at what cost? The deeper they ventured into the forest, the more the shadows thickened around them. Each step felt like a descent into a hidden abyss, the trees standing tall like silent sentinels, their twisted roots grasping at the ground as if holding on to a secret. "Where are you taking me?" she repeated, her voice quaking. Her heartbeat pounded loudly in her ears, drowning out the soft padding of their feet on the damp earth. Yet, the figure never turned to look at her. He just walked ahead, his long shadows dancing on the ground like phantoms. With each turn, the familiar landscape began to feel strange, distorted. The trees, once just brown and green, morphed into painful silhouettes with faces twisted, mouths silently screaming, eyes wide with terror. She could swear they watched her with judgment, echoing her fears. "Mama!" she called again, voice cracking. "Do not cry for her," the stranger whispered, his tone smooth yet devoid of warmth. "Your mother left you. She chose to abandon you in these woods." The words hit her like stones, heavy and sharp. It took all her strength to stay silent, to fight her instinctual urge to wail and flee. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing it all away. But she could still hear him, his breath steady, flowing through the air like poison. "She didn't abandon me," she exclaimed defiantly, feeling a flicker of anger against the rising fear. "She's coming back." The figure finally turned, revealing his expression in a flash of moonlight. His grin was wide, unsettling, eyes gleaming with an unnatural light that suggested he wasn't just some passerby lost in the forest. "Isn't it sweet how you cling to that hope? I hate you." She spat, surprise coursing through her as her voice became a weapon, a sharp echo against the silence. "You may hate me now, but you'll see. You'll learn the truth soon enough," he said, his voice sinister but laced with anticipation. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the forest erupted. The wind howled like a banshee, the trees creaked and twisted, as if nature itself reacted to her defiance. She stumbled back, trying to keep her footing. "What's happening?" she shouted over the roar. He laughed, a chilling sound laced with dark satisfaction. You've awakened them, he murmured, the guardians of this realm. They thrive on fear, they feast on lost souls. Panic clawed at her throat. Suddenly, the path felt alive, the ground trembling under her feet as shadows swarmed, swirling together in chaotic dances. She could feel the air around her grow thick, stirring with malicious intent. Run! She screamed, instinctively pulling away from his grip, but he held tight. His cold embrace wrapped around her like a vice, a horrifying reminder of the darkness she was intertwined with. Where will you run, little one? There is no escape from what you seek. He leaned close, the scent of damp earth and decay pressing against her senses. You're woven into the fabric of this place. Your journey has only just begun. The ground began to warp, and out of the shadows, she could see shapes materializing, forms twisted and grotesque, their eyes like hollow voids gazing hungrily at her fear. Her heart thundered in her chest, the world and its lurking terrors closed in around her. I want to go home. I want my mama. She clawed at his grip, desperation fueling her determination. The truth shall be revealed, and it will shatter your understanding of safety and love. He exclaimed, his voice booming, swallowing the forest alive with a dark echo. As she continued to fight against him, the shadows drew closer, hungry whispers creeping from the trees. What have you brought to us? One hissed, its voice skeletal and haunting, terror ignited within her. No, please. She cried, but it was too late. In that moment, the darkness surged, an engulfing wave of despair. She felt herself pulled back, deeper into the shadows, accompanied by the cacophony of trembling whispers, a twisted serenade of lost souls. Embrace your fate, the figure urged, his voice now a low growl, resonating with dark familiarity. But as the shadows closed in, a single thought clawed through her mind. This couldn't be the end, could it? Just before she surrendered to the void, a flicker of light appeared in the distance. It glimmered like a beacon against the encroaching darkness. Hope swelled in her chest, a desperate wish to reach it. What is that? She gasped, turning to him for answers, but his attention had shifted, eyes fixated on the light. Only those who seek can truly find what they've lost, he said quietly, a fleeting look of uncertainty flashing across his face. But beware, little one, not all lights will lead you home. As the whispers grew louder and the shadows began to pulse with a rhythm of their own, she advanced toward the light, driven by a flicker of hope. Would it illuminate the truth, or lead her deeper into the darkness she feared? The forest held its breath. What awaited her at the end of this path? Would discovery mean salvation or doom? She hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment press down on her. The light flickered, a pulse against the darkness, and she instinctively took a step forward. The figure released her, letting her stumble toward the beacon. It shimmered like a silver thread weaving between the trees, drawing her ever closer. Another whisper curled around her ears, chilling her spine. Do you really think it can save you? It hissed, a dank voice barely above a breath. She shook her head, trying to block it out, but doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. With each step, the forest around her twisted and contorted, the faces in the trees warping into forms reminiscent of her nightmares. She blinked hard, focusing on the light. It was so close now, illuminating a small clearing, bright and pure against the encroaching gloom. But what lay just beyond the light? Was it a way back to her mother, or something far more sinister? Her pulse raced. She quickened her pace, her breath becoming shallow. Mama. She called again, half uncertain whether it was a plea or a summons. In response, the shadows deepened, eyes glinting more viciously in the dark. Don't go towards it. The figure's voice called uncharacteristically soft, an unexpected tone of warning. The light masks the truth more than any darkness. Shut up. She shot back, shaking with fear and anger. She was tired of his voice wrapping around her like poison. The forest felt alive, breathing heavily in anticipation, vibrating with energy. Just as she reached the edge of the clearing, the light flared, blinding. She stumbled forward, falling to her knees. The brightness enveloped her, and for a moment, she thought she could be free. But then, like a mirror shattering, the light fractured into thousands of shards, the ground shook again as the shadows writhed, and the whispers morphed into wails of agony. "What have you brought to us?" they howled, a multitude of voices spiraling into cacophony. She shielded her eyes with her arm, tears streaming down her cheeks as the light twisted into grotesque forms. They seemed like the shadows of the guardians the figure had mentioned, distorted figures made of shimmering light, but with twisted faces of rage and grief. "No!" she screamed, reeling back. "Leave me alone. I didn't bring anything." The guardian closest to her reached out with gnarled fingers, an unexpected gentleness lurking beneath its sinister appearance. "You have brought fear," it said, its voice like rustling leaves, filled with an ancient sorrow. "And fear nourishes us." "No. I just want to go home." Panic clawed back in her chest, the darkness tightening like a noose. The figure materialized next to her again, his eyes wide, his grin twisted into something akin to excitement. "You must choose, little girl," he said, his voice low and thick with delight. "The light can unbind you from fright, but it will also unveil the horrors of what you seek. A choice must be made." Her heart raced, and her mind swirled like a storm. She thought of her mother, the warmth of her embrace, the sound of her voice like a lullaby. Would this light guide her back to that safety, or would it slap her with a truth she wasn't prepared to face? "Choose the truth," the guardian whispered, "or stay forever lost." The choice loomed large. Could she find the courage to confront whatever lay hidden in the light? Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the shadows grew restless, swarming like a tide pulling back to reveal more than just silence. Would the truth she faced be her salvation, or the end of all she knew? And in that moment, as the world around her twisted with dark potential, she finally spoke. Would it heed her words, or would it shatter everything she held dear? "Truth," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din of the wailing shadows. The words slipped from her lips like a blade through the thick fog of fear. As soon as it left her mouth, the forest trembled in response, the air electrified with an energy she could almost taste. "Truth," the guardian echoed, its face twisting into a mixture of dread and eagerness. The shadows halted, still swirling but now vibrating with anticipation. She felt their collective gaze, a weight pressing against her, curious and hungry for what was to come. "Are you sure?" The figure pressed, stepping closer, a mockery of concern in his eyes. "Once the truth is revealed, there may be no turning back." His tone dripped with malice, as if he relished the thought of her unraveling. "Yes." The conviction in her voice surprised even herself. She couldn't remain bound to fear. There had to be more than this darkness twisting around her heart. The guardian slid forward, the light from its form illuminating the faces of the others, momentarily revealing haunted expressions longing for release. With a deep breath, she steeled herself. "Show me," she commanded, and in that instant, silence enveloped the clearing, the air shimmered, and suddenly, the light swirled around her like a living entity. With each pulse, memories flooded her mind, vivid flashes of laughter, warmth, her mother's touch. But then the light dulled, replaced with a shadowed tapestry of her fears. A young girl, lost in a maze of tall weeds, a memory tarnished by sorrow. A pair of hands reaching for her, only to be swallowed by a dark void. She gasped as images morphed rapidly, showing her what had been hidden inside, the things she had tried to forget. The night 8 years ago when her mother had braved the storm to find her, only for that storm to swallow them both. Tears streamed down her face as she relived those moments. "No," she murmured, as her heart ached with the weight of what she had hidden. The betrayal of being left alone, the gnawing fear that her mother hadn't fought hard enough to save her. But even in her sorrow, a flicker of hope ignited. "I wasn't alone, was I?" she said, looking up at the guardian. "They came for me, they all came for me." With a sudden rush of understanding, she felt the truth against her skin, sharper than any blade. The shadows recoiled, and something shifted in the air, a tension fraying. The scene around her warped again, revealing a tableau of anguish, the shadowy figures morphing into twisted, anguished versions of loved ones she had lost. She realized then that the shadows had been fueled by her fear and sorrow, feeding on the pain she thought she'd buried. No! She yelled, the emotion bursting forth like a dam breaking. You can't have them. I won't let you. The words propelled her, igniting a fire within, turning her fear into strength. As if summoned by her fierce determination, the forest brightened, the shadows shrank, retreating from the brilliant light now radiating from her core. For the first time, she felt like she could stand against the specters that haunted her, the truth becoming a shield. The figure sneered, his face twisting in disbelief. You think you can cast us away? His words dripped with fury as the ground quaked beneath her, but she could feel the shift, the overpowering fear slowly dissipating. Hope wrapped around her like a warm blanket, spreading through her veins. Yes. I can. In that instant, the vibrant threads of light began to entwine around her, blurring her edges with confidence. With a powerful surge, she stepped forward into the heart of the illumination, ready to reclaim the light she had almost lost, and in that moment of convergence, a blinding flash cascaded through the forest. When the brilliance faded, she found herself not in the clearing, but in a stark hallway coated in dust, silent echoes of the past whispering around her. What just happened? She breathed, trembling with disbelief. A door creaked open at the end of the hall, an ominous whisper beckoning her. Come and see, was this the path of freedom or another trap? The unanswered question hung heavy in the air, pressing against her resolve. With each cautious step, she approached the door, the faint scent of her mother's perfume drifting softly through the crack. She hesitated at the door's edge, her heart pounding in sync with the whispers echoing down the dusty hallway. The perfume, so familiar and sweet, tugged at her memories, drawing her closer. What if it's really her? The thought flickered like a candle flame, illuminating the shadows of doubt clinging to her. Taking a breath, she pushed the door open slowly, the hinges protesting with a deep, drawn-out creak. The room beyond was cloaked in darkness, save for a single beam of light slicing through the gloom, landing on an old, tattered chair facing a window covered by thick, dusty curtains. Was this her mother's chair? Anxiety clutched at her throat. Hello? She called out, her voice trembling. The sound bounced off the walls, swallowed by the suffocating silence. She stepped inside and the door slammed shut behind her, locking her within a surreal bubble of stillness. Suddenly, the shadows in the corners began to shift and dance, coiling like snakes ready to strike. Each movement seemed to whisper secrets, dark, malicious secrets that thrummed against her chest. The hairs on her arms stood on end as dread washed over her. Why are you here? A voice asked, smooth like oil, yet unsettling. The guardian's presence lingered, unseen but felt, heavy and cold. I came to find, her voice faltered. A part of her wanted to retreat, to escape the collapse of her own courage. But another part, the stronger part, demanded to know. Find what? The voice taunted, its tone laced with amusement. You've already lost so much, child. What more do you dare seek? With rising anger, she shouted, how do you know me? What do you want? The shadows flared in response, swirling around her feet like angry spirits. Despair, my dear. You've marinated in it for so long. You're just a vessel of your pain. The voice cracked like thunder, and she could almost feel the shadows tightening their grip, threatening to envelop her. But in that very moment, something deep within her roared back. I'm not your vessel. I refuse to be defined by my pain. The light inside her surged, vibrant and fierce, pushing against the shadows. For every dark curl that reached for her, she let the light spill forth, a radiant counterforce. The shadows hesitated, vacillating between attack and retreat, and as they faltered, her courage amplified. Show me. She yelled again. Show me what you're shielding from me. With that command, the air around her shimmered violently, like a surface of water disturbed with panic. And then, suddenly, the room transformed. She was no longer alone in that dusty room. Figures began to materialize, ghostly and spectral. Friends, family, even her mother emerged from the darkness, but their faces were twisted in agony, shadows staining their forms. "Help us!" they cried, but their voices were mixed with the haunting wails she had felt in the forest. Confusion twisted inside her gut. "What is this?" She stumbled back, unsure of what was real. "You've brought them here," the voice continued, an echo of mockery. "You wanted the truth. Now face it. They are the remnants of your guilt, your fears, what you thought you buried." Tears blurred her vision as she reached for them, but they recoiled as if she burned them. The weight of their agony crashed over her like a tidal wave. "No, I can't do this. I can't let them suffer." Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and a chilling wind howled through the room. She felt the presence of the guardian intensify, its looming figure now bathed in shadows, a dark force at the center of it all. "Fight it," it urged, its voice a seductive whisper. "Choose to forget and join them." Panic surged through her, and for the first time, she truly understood the stakes. "I want to join them," she gasped, clenching her fists. "I will remember." Outside the window, storm clouds churned darkly, a brewing tempest. The atmosphere crackled with charged energy as she steeled herself for what was to come. The moment she chose to embrace her truth, the air shifted dramatically, then, just as the shadows began to roar, the world around them was abruptly enveloped in light. A brilliant shockwave that sent her reeling back. The brightness swallowed her, and for an agonizing heartbeat, she thought she'd burst through to freedom. But when her senses returned, she was back at the forest's edge, standing beside the guardian. The shadows were gone, replaced by a deafening silence that echoed endlessly. "What just happened?" she whispered, struggling to piece together the fragments of her shattered reality. "You have chosen your path," the guardian replied, its voice solemn and strong. But it is far from over. Before she could respond, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and she glimpsed figures emerging from the treeline, faces she recognized, yet something was off. They moved slowly, almost deliberately, trepidation hanging in the air. Fear coursed through her once more as she braced for their approach. Would this new revelation save her, or had she just unleashed something more sinister? The distance between her and the figures closed, and in that moment, she could only wonder what awaited her now. The figures seemed to glide rather than walk, their movements eerily fluid, like marionettes controlled by unseen strings. She squinted, trying to pierce the fog of familiarity and fear. Each outline stirred a haunting recognition, a chilling reminder of what she had lost. "Mama?" she breathed, her voice trembling. As they drew closer, the faces twisted with sorrow. Their eyes, vacant and hollow, bore into her soul, igniting a tempest of dread within her. "Help us," they murmured in unison, each word echoing like a funeral dirge. The air grew heavier, pressing against her chest, squeezing out all hope. "No!" she cried, raising her hands as if to shield herself from their agony. "You're not real. You can't be." But their lips didn't stop moving as shadows swirled behind them, growing stronger by the second. The guardian remained silent, its presence cloaked in a smothering gloom, a specter looming over the tower of her fears. "Defy them," it whispered. "The truth lies ahead. Embrace your pain, and the way will become clear." "Stop it." She clenched her fists tight, fighting against the tidal wave of despair clawing at her mind. "You're just memories. You made your choice." The figures paused, their faces a mix of shock and sorrow. For a brief moment, she felt the connection, the love, the laughter they once shared, but it twisted into something grotesque as the shadows screamed in response. "You abandoned us," they cried, their voices now frayed and discordant, merging into one haunting melody. "You turned away when we needed you." "No," she shouted back, her voice trembling with the weight of her conviction. "You're wrong. I sought to remember, to heal. I came back for you." But the shadows gained strength, ripping from the forest and swirling around her with a chilling ferocity. She felt herself being pulled toward their angry darkness, a whirlpool of despair with no way out. "Fight!" The Guardian's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. They want you to drown in their regret. Remember your light. The storm inside her surged in response. No more. She screamed, determination flaring like wildfire within her. The shadows hesitated, caught off guard by her defiance. As they receded, her internal light sparked fiercely, illuminating her surroundings. With each pulse, the shadows shrank back from her brilliance, retreating slowly like frightened dogs. I am not your vessel. She yelled again, and with that declaration, colors exploded in a dazzling spectrum around her. The figures flinched but remained, anchored to their pain, caught between two worlds. Her heart raced as she felt their lingering pain start to unravel, threads of guilt and sorrow breaking loose. The ghostly figures flickered, their anguish waning like a candle flame slowly dimming. But the realization struck her as an icy dagger: she could not save them if they refused to let go. I can't hold your guilt, she cried, the tears streaming down her cheeks. You have to let me go. The faces twisted in confusion, a mixture of longing and despair. But how? One whispered through trembling lips, its voice softer now, a glimmer of vulnerability echoing in a once wretched chorus. Embrace the memories, she urged, her voice steady amidst the wind. Remember the love beneath the shadows. Use that to heal. The ground shook once more, this time pulsating a rhythm of life. Out of the chaos, a blinding light surged from within her, breaching the thick darkness, reaching out to the figures. One by one, they flinched, their faces softening as they finally confronted the reality of their choices. With each acceptance, bursting light enveloped them, moments of warmth cascading around like petals in a spring breeze, but then, even as hope radiated in all directions, she saw a flicker of something darker emerging from the treeline, a massive shadow growing steadily, larger than anything she had encountered before. It loomed over everything, emanating a chilling aura. She spun around, dread pooling in her stomach. It was not just one shadow this time, it was a legion. What is this? She breathlessly whispered, the realization creeping in like an unwelcome guest. The Guardian's words echoed in her mind. The truth lies ahead. What truth awaited her in the darkness beyond? She felt a cold chill infiltrate her heart as the veil of shadows thickened, a threat that seemed to open its maw, ready to swallow her whole. She had fought, but the war was far from over. What if facing this new darkness was the only way to break the chains binding her past? As the shadows approached, she felt that weight pressed down again. What would it cost her to discover the truth that lay ahead? The shadows moved like a dark tide, an ominous wave of despair that crawled toward her, closing off her escape. Dark tendrils lashed out, whispering horrors she couldn't quite grasp. Each echo felt like a knife against her skin, digging deeper as the chill seeped into her bones. With every step back, the ground quaked, tilting beneath her feet. Desperation clawed at her insides. I won't give in, she shouted, feeling the light within her pulse fiercely against the encroaching shadows. They hesitated, their slithering forms faltering just enough to create an opening. Run! The Guardian's voice roared, shaking the air around her. She didn't need to be told twice. Adrenaline spiked through her veins as she sprinted toward the clearing, the shadows tearing apart in her wake like ominous clouds, but the darkness behind her surged forward, a monstrous entity prepared to consume everything and everyone in its path. She dared not look behind, afraid that one glimpse would steal her courage. Instead, she pressed ahead, her heart hammering like thunder as she threw herself beyond the treeline. Sunlight cascaded down like a waterfall, its blaze temporarily blinding her. She squinted through the brightness, momentarily disoriented but exhilarated. But this freedom was fleeting. Shadows slithered into the edge of the clearing, unfurling silently, ready to drag her back into the abyss. What could she do? A cold realization gripped her, running wouldn't save her this time. This was the moment she needed to confront her fears, to face the truth that had lingered like a ghost at the edge of her consciousness. Gather your strength, she cried out defiantly. I won't let you take me. The air crackled with energy as she gathered the warmth inside her, a sunlit beacon against the encroaching darkness. A wave of love, of true memories, surged through her. She could almost feel her mother's embrace, see the warmth in her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks, no longer from despair, but from the recognition that alongside her pain was a fierce love that could not be extinguished. The Shadow Legion waved around her like storm clouds, twisting and contorting through the air. But they faltered at the brilliance she conjured, the very essence of her memories glowing fiercely. "You can't have them!" she screamed, thrusting her hands forward, sending that radiant light barreling toward the shadows. As the light collided with creeping darkness, there was an explosion of blinding brilliance. The shadows hissed and shrieked, recoiling, splintering into shards of ebony. But they did not disperse. Instead, they amalgamated, forming one colossal shadow that loomed larger and darker than anything she had ever seen. It whispered her name, a throaty echo that reverberated in her skull. "You cannot escape. Your guilt binds you to us." "No!" she shouted, feeling the pulse of brightness inside her grow stronger, fueled by defiance. "You will not dictate my truth." The ground trembled violently, and the world seemed to ripple around her. With each heartbeat, the sheer force of her light pushed back against the immense shadow, cracking it like glass. But suddenly, she felt a new sensation, a sharp pain, like something piercing her heart. She gasped, faltering as a vision flooded her mind, glimpses of her past, long-buried regrets surfacing, weighed down by a guilt that threatened to drown her once more. "Embrace free will," the shadows taunted. "You have caused the pain." She stumbled, grappling with the voices of her past, faces of loved ones mingled with disappointment. Drowning beneath the weight of responsibility, she felt her resolve cracking. "Help us!" The echoes shrieked again, and she froze. "No!" she yelled. "This is my choice." But even as she cried out, a cold dread wrapped around her, creeping deeper. The air thickened, inhibiting her breath, as if the very shadows she fought against were suffocating her spirit. Her vision dimmed. Just when it felt like hope was slipping away, she saw in her mind the faces of those she cherished. It wasn't enough to chase the darkness away, yet. That flicker ignited a fire in her chest. "Fight!" The Guardian's voice resounded, filling her with strength once more. As hope mingled with resolve, she realized that the truth lay not just in her past but in her capacity to change. And then, with a newfound clarity, she stood tall, ready to ignite her will against this tide. "Whatever it takes," she hollered, the determination surging like a wave across the battlefield, but the shadows retaliated, their grip tightening around her, pulling her closer to their depths. "Will you stand and face the past, or will you surrender?" The question loomed in the air, heavy and loaded. Was she strong enough to confront it? As the darkness and light clashed around her, she braced herself for the struggle ahead. Would this battle define her? Or could she rise from the ashes of her fears to rewrite her story? Time froze, and with a deep breath, she stepped toward the shadow's maw. The darkness surged forward, swallowing the clearing in one greedy gulp. She could feel its cold breath on the back of her neck, a reminder that time was slipping away. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet she stood resolute, anchored by the warm memories coursing within her. "I won't let you take me. I choose my path," she declared, her voice quaking but fierce. As the colossal shadow advanced, tendrils of black twisted around her arms, clinging like iron shackles. They shredded her spirit, whispering forgotten failures and lost dreams that echoed in her mind. Secretly sharp and full of venom, each word twisted her gut tighter. "You're not enough. You'll never be enough." "No!" she cried, the force of her denial pulsing outward, disrupting the anguish that suffocated her. The radiant warmth inside her swelled, and in that illuminating moment, she remembered laughter, her sister's giggle, the comfort of her mother's touch. Those memories lit up her heart, igniting a blinding blaze that pushed back the encroaching darkness. "Let it go," her guardian commanded, the timbre of their voice resonating through her very being. "You can't beat it until you face it." With a deep breath, she summoned the courage to confront the memories that crept at the edges of her mind. The visions exploded forth, the time she had let her best friend down, the arguments with her parents, the crumbling relationship with her sister. A storm of regret raged around her. Each memory clawed at her with desperation, begging for acknowledgement. The shadows fed on her hesitation, twisting her guilt into chains. No more. Heart racing, she reached deep within, gathering her light tighter and aiming it directly at the overwhelming presence that threatened to consume her. The tendrils recoiled and tightened, but she was no longer flinching from her pain. You're not my truth. You're only echoes and whispers. And with that declaration, she unleashed everything she had. A flood of warmth and light propelled outwards, illuminating the landscape in hues of gold and brilliance. Waves of energy crashed against the shadow, shattering its form temporarily like glass in the sun. A piercing shriek of defeat echoed from the depths, shaking the earth beneath her with its desperation. As the chaos settled into silence, she felt a brief pulse of relief wash over her. Just for a heartbeat, it truly seemed as if the shadows might retreat. But as the radiant energy began to fade, the colossal shadow coiled back, now more menacing, more frustrated. It roared, a deep, bone-chilling sound that resonated not just within the air, but deep into her very soul. Foolish child. Your light is a spark and sparks all eventually die. She staggered back, a chill wrapping around her heart again. Panic threatened to engulf her as realization hit. The shadow could not be vanquished as easily as she had hoped. This would be a battle of endurance, not victory, but doubt curled around her like smoke, whispering nagging fears. What if her light wouldn't last? What if she wasn't enough to extinguish the darkness? The thoughts squeezed tightly like a vice, chilling her spirit. Instinctively, she took a step back. A shimmer of uncertainty rose within her. I can't do this. She whimpered, the terror creeping forth again. But then, she rallied. Yes, you can. The guardian shouted from the depth of her mind, urging her on. You were made for this. With renewed determination, she planted her feet firmly, resolute to reclaim her destiny. It was then she noticed something off behind the dark horizon. A glow flickered faintly. Was this another trick? No, the glow pulsed with the same warmth she had felt, resonating with the beat of her heart. It called to her. Follow the light, it whispered softly. Could it be? The shadows writhed angrily, sensing her distraction, as they clawed back at her, demanding her focus, but the bright light shimmered brighter, urging her to move. Was it an ally? Another chance? Or was it a trap waiting to ensnare her soul? Heart racing anew, she steeled herself, gathering the flickering light within her as she prepared to chase after that glow. But the shadows tightened again, as if sensing her resolve. Stay, they hissed, and drown in your guilt. The battle raged on, light pitted against darkness, hope against despair, and for the first time, she felt their true strength within her, an overwhelming force that might just tip the scales. With a deep breath and racing pulse, she jumped forward. What lay waiting for her on the other side? Could she shatter the grip of shadows forever, or would they pull her back into their noxious depths? Only one way to find out. The girl plunged forward, propelled by sheer will, the glow before her expanding and illuminating the shadows that clawed at her heels. The warmth enveloped her like a protective embrace, pushing back the chill that threatened to bar her path. She felt the ground shift beneath her, a tremor of energy rising, amplifying her determination as she pushed through the suffocating tendrils of darkness. Remember who you are. The guardian's voice surged through her, infusing her with strength. You are not their prisoner. With each step, the glow pulsated, intertwining with her heartbeat, amplifying her courage. The vast shadows writhed in ire, and she could almost hear their furious whispers, wrapping around her like chains tightening. They were desperate, clawing for her fear, feeding off her every doubt. But not today. I will not surrender. She shouted, her voice resonating with newfound power. The shadows hesitated, flickering just enough for her to forge ahead. The light surged brighter, a beacon slicing through the oppressive gloom, illuminating faces, silhouettes of those she cherished, their features softening with her resolve. Stand strong. The guardian echoed, almost breathless with anticipation. They are here, but only you have the power to break the spell. Gathering her strength, she closed her eyes, reaching deep inside for the reservoir of love and laughter, memories woven together in brilliance. Her mother's laugh, her sister's warmth, the camaraderie of friends, those moments intertwined like a tapestry of light. As her heart swelled, the glow intensified. You can't take this from me, she screamed. In a sudden burst of fury and defiance, she unleashed the light, sending it swirling outward. It cracked like thunder, an explosion of warmth that shot through the shadows. The ground shook violently, wrestling between light and dark. The shrieking of the shadows intensified, a cacophony of rage echoing through the forest, uprooting the very fabric of the twilight. The blinding light surged forward with the strength of her will. The faces of her loved ones echoed back, their voices harmonizing, echoing her strength. We're with you, they cried. With that sound, the dark tendrils quivered, shrinking back from her, whimpering, as if the light had placed a ban on their whispers. She felt the shadows retreat, their thorns dropping like autumn leaves, wilting away from the purity she exuded. Keep going, the guardian urged, seeing the opportunity she had created. With determination fueling every step, she stepped deeper into the radiant light, embracing it with open arms. The more she let go of her fears, the more the warmth swelled, swirling around her, dispatching relentless shadows that had clawed for her spirit. And then, in a brilliant climax of energy, her surroundings brightened, a kaleidoscope of colors shimmering into existence. The shadows, once looming and twisted, erupted into a flicker, retreating into nothingness. She felt light on her shoulders, the weight of despair evaporating with each flicker of warmth. As the last remnants of darkness dissolved, she stood alone in a vivid expanse of shimmering light, golden rays cascading joyfully through the canopy above. It sang with hope, a beautiful tune that echoed the promise of safety and love, a realm beyond the grip of despair. And then she spotted them, the familiar silhouettes dancing at the edges of the light, faces blooming into shape. Her mother beamed with radiant love, eyes sparkling with warmth, and beside her, friends and family began to emerge, unfurling like petals in spring. The joy in their expressions melted her heart. Mama, she cried out, arms outstretched. Her mother rushed forward, wrapping her tightly in a hug, warmth coursing through her like the sun chasing away the night. My child, you found your way back. Tears streamed down her cheeks, a flood of relief and joy cascading over her heart. For the first time, she felt whole. She had ventured through the shadows, faced the whispers of guilt and fear, and emerged with a strength she didn't know she possessed. In that moment, surrounded by love and light, she understood. The true shadows were not only external but also the fears that lurked within her. Nothing could extinguish the bond of love, and the truth, no matter how painful, could illuminate even the darkest of paths. With her heart full, she looked around, seeing the brilliance of her journey reflected in the eyes of her loved ones. This time, when she whispered Mama, it was a call of joy, freedom wrapping around her like an embrace. Thank you for the journey, she murmured to the guardian, whose presence now felt like a warm echo. The guardian, with a knowing smile, nodded, watching over the transition. You've learned to stand in the light. Carry it with you. As the sun set, embracing the horizon, she stepped forward, hand in hand with her family, ready to forge a new path filled with hope and love. Together, they walked into the pastel colors of dusk, leaving behind the shadows forever. And now, to you who have journeyed with her, don't let this story fade into darkness. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and ensure you're in the loop for the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your emotions and theories about the ending. Your insights matter. And finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of hope and inspiration in their lives. Don't wait even one more second to share. Let us keep the light shining bright together.